recording in progress. I think we'll get the show on the road. Thanks so much to everybody for coming today, spending a little time with us on a Sunday afternoon. We've got many other things in the door that you could be working on. Please sure to be signed in and grab a packet over there. My name's Gary Cohen. With me today for helping with training back Mark Caulfield and Craig Schultz. We've done convener training in many districts wherever we've lived for way too many years. But it's an important thing to make sure that the folks that are going to be conveners to get their caucuses started and hopefully becoming the caucus chair for the night feel comfortable with what they need to do. So before we do anything else, I'd just like to go around the room real quick as folks could just say their name and their precinct. And then when we're all done with those intros, I'm going to ask everybody one quick question. Why don't we start over here?
Well, good afternoon, everyone, and saying good morning there. My name is TJ Sikorsky, and I'm going to represent Robbinsdale Ward 4.
Thank you.
I'm Colleen Myers, Golden Valley 8.
Thank you.
Heather Heggie, Crystal Ward 3, and I'm also the database director for
Thank you, Heather.
Karen Chandler, Plymouth 16.
Ruth Paradise, Precinct 7, and I'm the resolutions chair.
Claudia Damal, and I'm Golden Valley Precinct 2, Vice Chair SD43.
Janice Snelling, New Hope Precinct 1.
Thank you. And what do we?
Peter Riley, Golden Valley Precinct 2.
Thank you.
Mark Caulfield, Golden Valley Precinct 3. Craig Schultz, Precinct 16.
Sarah Schulte, Golden Valley Precinct 6.
Thank you.
Adam Skank, New Hope, Precinct 7.
And another Golden Valley 8.
Sophia Guinness, at Golden Valley 7, i.e. Ruth's back up.
And I don't want to embarrass Sophia, but she's a member of the Golden Valley City Council as well. Yay.
Melissa Caulfield, Golden Valley Precinct 3.
John LaPointe, Robbinsdale, Ward 2.
Thank you.
My name's Roger Sheldon, Golden Valley 4.
Thank you.
Amy Hummel, Robbinsdale Ward 2.
Thank you.
John Bruszewski, Crystal Ward 2.
Thank you so much.
And that's it.
All right. Well, again, thank you all so much for being here today. Just a couple of announcements before we get started. If you need to use the restroom, that doorway is locked, so you've got to go out and back into the library to get to the restrooms and then come on back in. A little time check. The room is ours until 2, but there's another group in here at 2. So we're going to wrap up about 1:45 at the latest so that we can put the room back together so that the next group can have their fun at 2 o'clock. So we should have plenty of time to go through the items we want to cover, plenty of time for questions along the way. Please don't hesitate to ask. If you ask a question, we'll do our very best to answer. We've got lots of experienced folks here. There may be a couple times where we'll say, we're going to get to that in a couple minutes in the agenda. So bear with us if we don't answer that question right away. Before we get started, how many of you have ever run a precinct caucus before this year?
This year.
Yep. So the majority of the folks in the room are experienced at this task. So we'll lean on you as well, and you can help your seatmates with questions if they've got something along the way too that we're not able to deal with. How many of you have never been to a precinct caucus before? Okay, so everybody's at least seen the fun, been involved in the fun somewhere along the line. 3 important dates, and then we'll get into the gist of the training. Tuesday, February 27th, precinct caucus night. All the precinct caucuses are at Plymouth Middle School, which is just about the 169 and 36th Avenue North, about the 36th Avenue North, then a little west. Yeah, that's it.
And Gary, there's been some miscommunication going out in the Johan's campaign that the caucuses are at the Robbinsdale Middle School.
But we're at Plymouth Middle School, so hopefully folks will find the right place and not follow what campaigns they're telling them, because there's a lot of information that gets misstated out there. So we want to go with the official DFL sites, which tell us what's going on that night.
I did get a phone call from, Ilhan, worker saying that it was at Plymouth Middle School
Okay.
yesterday, so.
Well, again, frankly, and I'm gonna just say this once. For what we're doing here, do not listen to the campaigns. We have a particular role to follow and how we want to do this to follow the DFL rules, so. Just, the campaigns will call, but be focused on what the Senate district is sending out and talking about, because they are the ones to listen.
No, I'm a little confused. I thought Sandburg is the same.
Nope, nothing in Sandburg this year.
The Republicans are there.
Yeah, no Democrats, all the Democrats from Senate District 43 are at Plymouth Middle School.
Do you have an address for Plymouth Middle School?
136. Right by Armstrong.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
There was an original DFL miscommunication about the work push. It's not campaign sabotage.
Yeah, so it's both, there was some miscommunication.
But it's Plymouth Middle School, anything if you go to the DFL sites about caucuses, and even the Secretary of State site where it directs you, it's gonna tell you Plymouth Middle School. So hopefully folks will get to the right place.
And
And
talk to anybody, tell them, make sure they understand.
yeah, and it's not at all unusual, even if people get a piece of paper that says where to go, if it's different than where they've gone before, they go to the place they've gone before, because that's what's in their head. So anyway, we'll hope that folks get to the right place. And because you'll see as we go along, we don't close caucuses. If somebody gets there a little late, they are still able to participate. So caucus night, 27th. The other important date for what we're doing, because we're gonna elect delegates that night that go to the Senate District Convention, Saturday, March 16th, that's at Cooper High School. On the caucus agenda, you see times and addresses. The other important thing is this is a presidential primary year, Tuesday, March 5th. So we do not do any presidential activity at the precinct caucus. There are no straw polls or anything like that, because that presidential primary is where all that's done. So if somebody says, let's do a straw poll on president, they are frankly out of order. That's not to be done on caucus night. Obviously, people may want to talk about that, have resolutions about supporting certain candidates, but everything about presidential politics is at that primary on Tuesday, March 5th. It's your polling place that you are most familiar with, no doubt. And that's how that evening, that day's activities, I should say, work. Polls open from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. How many folks in the room are election judges? Thank you for doing that. I retired after 20 years of doing that. So it's a wonderful task, and we're so grateful when folks help. So we're going to move on to the task at hand. If you follow along in your packet that says 2024 caucus convener instructions, this is what we're going to work through. It's got a number of example documents attached to it with form numbers on them. If you pull out form number 5 as we get started, that's the precinct caucus agenda and the precinct caucus rules. And what we're going to be doing is, as we go through the instructions, we've got items noted that match the form numbers to help you. These are yours to keep. Feel free to make all the notes that you wish. Things can help you along the way. Put them under your pillow the night before caucuses, and everything will seep into your brains to make sure you're doing a good job. But this isn't hard. If you've been to a caucus before or done this before, it's not hard. You want to make sure that you just follow the instructions and don't forget to do things. And we're here to have fun on caucus night. So you always want to keep that in mind. And if people have a good time at caucus night, they're going to want to continue in the process. They want to come to the Senate District Convention. If they don't have a good time, they're going to go, I don't want to do this, not worth my time. So we want to make sure they're having a good time, and we want to make sure they understand what's going on, which is why we're doing this training to help you. The other thing to remember, we are guests of the school. At any time you're at a school, you are guests there. So on caucus night, when you walk into the classroom that's assigned to your precinct, please don't mess up stuff that this class has at whiteboards or other things like that, because they're going to be very upset when they come into school on Wednesday morning if we mess stuff up. And it's gonna mean that they're gonna say, we don't want this group to come back. And it's difficult to find caucus locations. We try to be all together in one place. So we want to be good guests. They are good hosts. We want to be good guests. So we don't want to mess stuff up that night. So be cautious about that. Put the room back the way it was if you're moving anything around. If people have brought food in, which I never say is a good idea, make sure you clean up because the custodians were paying overtime to help make sure everything's good again. So anything we can do to help with that process to keep everything nice is really important. So we're gonna move in to the actual instructions. Some things you can bring along on caucus night just to help, and we've got noted here. Bring some extra black pens. Black pens copy best to fill out forms. I've always taken the top off pens if I have that kind of pen, because nobody wants to take a pen home that doesn't have a top, and then you'll get your pen back. Resolutions, for those of you that love to work on resolutions, you know there's a resolutions form, and sometimes people come in with pre-printed resolutions. If you have a stapler or paper clips, bring that along, use that so that you can attach those pre-printed resolutions to the resolution form that we need. Some blank paper for ballots for any contested votes is always good. Name tags, sometimes people like those. I don't tend to use those at caucuses I've been a part of, but it's okay. Blue painter tape. Doesn't leave marks. Always good to have if you've got some of this for anything that might be put up. The district's going to put up lots of signage in the building, so a lot of that will be taken care of for you. And the last thing is if you've got a smartphone or a tablet, there will be Wi-Fi in the building. It's always iffy at schools how well the Wi-Fi works, it seems to me, but you can get to the Secretary of State website for precinct finder info and other things. And we'll have a lot of stuff there to help people when they walk in the door to make sure they get to the right place. We'd like to have you there at 6 o'clock to set up, to get things rolling, get ready to go, put all that stuff up. Have a space for people to fill out the little registration form, which is form number 1. This is a 4-page that'll be cut up for you. There are maps that will be asked to post. You want to have copies of the agenda rules that are here. A lot of this stuff will be copied in advance for you. Post the DFL call, DFL platform, DFL constitution and bylaws. You'll get your precinct packets that night that have all this information in there. So that's why we ask you to be there at 6 so you have time to set everything up and be ready to go. And as folks come in, say hi, tell them thanks for coming. And you can recruit folks to help you with other tasks that are on hand that night. Caucus secretary to keep track of what's going on, a couple people to count ballots if we need them. Timekeeper is always nice to make sure that we're moving right along when people are talking. And come 6:30, people are going to start to appear. So you want to be ready. Use that time between 6 and 6:30 to get everything set. And as folks come in, they will fill out form number 1, which is the precinct caucus registration form. It says, please print legibly. Some of your fellow district members are going to do data entry, so if they could read these forms, that's the most helpful. Ask for name, address, city, name, rank, serial number. The eligibility statement, it's on the DFL for tonight at least. And it's the same kind of thing that when you go vote, there's an eligibility statement that hardly anybody looks at, but it's all saying you are who you are, etc. Place to sign and date, and mark how you are participating that night. A participant, youth, or a visitor, people can come visit. These are public meetings, but everybody needs to fill one of these out, and you want to make sure to encourage folks to do it as clearly and as carefully as possible so that we can make sure we can read all this information. So we'll get to 7 o'clock and we can call the caucus to order. You cannot start before 7. State law says you got to start at 7 p.m. And basically, you want to introduce yourself. You are the convener to get the meeting going. And what we do at caucus night, I find it's always nice as you get started to say, how many people have never been to a caucus before? Or the alternative, how many people have been to a caucus before? Gives you an idea of your audience. You want to introduce yourself and remind them I'm the caucus convener tonight to get the show started. We're going to have some elections later on to deal with other activities. There are items to read. You can pass the reading tasks to others. I always say if you are going to be running your caucus, bring some water or something because you'll get dry as the night goes on. I'm not going to read any of these items, but this is what you read. There's the greeting from Ken Martin, DFL Chair. We're on item number 2. Item number 3, we read the participant eligibility statement, and it basically is the things that we just noted, that you have 5 items you agree with, you're in this precinct, you can be the right age, consider yourself a member of the DFL party, and so on and so forth. And we also want to make sure folks, as best we can, are in the right precinct. We have maps, so say if you looked at the map as you came in, sure you're in the right place. Sometimes people will say, and we vote at XYZ. You know, if you voted in the last election, that's where you voted, although we know some have changed because of redistricting. But those are all good ways to make sure folks are in the right place. If they're not sure where they are, we have those precinct finders out in the lobby area. They can look at those maps. And if they are not in the right precinct, they can scurry on off to the right precinct that's somewhere else in the building. Questions so far? Yes.
I assume that means they don't have to be registered to vote.
Being registered to vote is not a requirement for precinct caucuses. That's correct. They just need to fit the 5 items that are in that participant statement. Although it's unlikely they're not registered to vote, and good likelihood they're coming to caucus. So, item number 4, this one's really critical. If you don't read the affirmative action statement, that's one thing your caucus challenged on. That's about the only thing that if you totally miss this one, that you can get in a lot of trouble for. So please be sure to read the affirmative action statement. And it speaks to the openness of the party and how we want to make sure that everybody has a chance to participate. And as we have later elections in the evening, there's an affirmative action reminder that you will want to read. You don't have to read this full affirmative action statement more than once, but you have to make sure you do it at the beginning of your caucus. Then it's item number 5, the platform statement. Talks about the DFL ongoing platform. And once you've done that, there may be some announcement letters from people like Senator Klobuchar that might be in the packets that you can read there as well. You can pass those around. But the items that we've got noted as read, somebody has to read those on caucus night before you get started. So make sure that you do those. And if you can follow along on this or on the agenda form, which is form number 5, as you do things, you can check off the numbers just goes, yep, I did it. Yep, I did it. Yep, I did it. So those are all good ways to keep track of what you're doing that night. Okay, now the next one for you. Number 6, elect a caucus chair. The convener gets the meeting started, but you are not, quote unquote, automatically the caucus chair. Caucus chair is a job for one night, just precinct caucus night, to run the meeting, make sure you get everything done, all the paperwork's filled out right, and then at the end of the night, you go, phew, I'm done. You can do other things as well, but that's for the caucus chair, you have a one-night job. And we always say, you are the convener. When you get to this stage, item 6, elect a caucus chair. This is you. Nominate yourself. A couple of reasons for that. Number 1, it tells people it's okay to nominate themselves for things if they want to. But number 2, people are going to look around like, I don't want to be caucus chair. So if you nominate yourself, immediately somebody's going to go, I nominate Gary. Let's vote. But you want to make sure if anybody else wants to do this, that they have an opportunity to nominate themselves. And then, assuming it's just you want to vote. All those in favor of Gary, say aye. Opposed, no. You're elected. Uncontested elections can always be a voice vote. If you got one slot, one person's running, that's uncontested. You vote, you're done. Okay, so you are now caucus chair, running the rest of the night. At this point, it's good to appoint a timekeeper if you haven't already done that. Caucus secretary to keep track of kind of what's going on, who gets elected to what. And a couple of people to volunteer to be tellers to help count ballots if you have any contested elections along the way. Contested elections this year, maybe for precinct chair. When we get to delegates for the next level convention, we aren't thinking of that being an issue this year, but we'll talk about that when we get there. Excuse me. So you've got your caucus chair, you're in place to run the rest of the night. You've got a couple tellers and some other volunteers to help with things. The next thing you want to do, item 7. And if you're following along on Form 5, you'll see item 7, adopt rules. And we've got that as well in our instructions here. The Form 5 has both your sample agenda as well as basic precinct caucus rules. And these rules have typically been sufficient for most precinct caucus activities. Talks about nominations, visiting speaker time limits of a couple minutes, motions and resolutions and how you deal with those. You can go at your leisure to dfl.org, the DFL website, and there are links to precinct caucus information, and the call governs precinct caucuses, next level conventions, etc. And there's only a couple of pages in the call that actually deal with precinct caucuses. It's pages 3, 4, and 5. But you can look at one of these at your convenience. There will be a hard copy in your packets that also we place in the rooms just so that it's all available to folks. But you don't have to memorize all this nor learn all about it for caucus night. It's just those first couple of pages that deal with precinct caucus activities. So yeah, people look at the rules. Typically, there aren't any issues with adopting basic rules. But you want to say, anybody have any changes or edits they'd like to make to the rules? If not, if they do, you talk about it. If not, it's all those in favor of adopting the rules, say aye, opposed, say no. The agenda is a separate item. It's always rules to adopt and an agenda to adopt. The agenda, those basic 17 items there, most of those are prescribed by the state DFL. So you really don't want to change the agenda or move things around because this is the most logical order for things to work in. The one item is, item 15, entertain visitor speeches. You can pop those visitors in at any time. If they are coming through, they have local elected officials, state reps are all up for endorsement. They're all going to kind of wander around between all the rooms to say hi. And you give them that nice couple minutes, and they're going to want to keep moving on. People want to ask questions. They should go out in the hall and talk to them versus holding up the caucus activities because they have a lot of rooms to get to on caucus night. So we don't want to hold them up. We also make a fundraising pitch. There'll be QR codes and other things. Hang on just a second, to encourage folks to give. There's a change to the political contribution refund program this year. How many people have ever used the PCR? Makes the treasurers in the room very happy to see that. But it used to be $50 a person or $100 on a joint contribution. It's now $75 for an individual, $150 for a joint contribution. So keep that in mind. You get to that limit, turn in your form, state sends you a check. Have that check that you can then use to make more contributions. But once you've done that PCR that one time, that's all you can do in a calendar year. And you had a question.
What's the difference between a vice chair and an associate chair and precinct chair?
None.
Okay.
I've lost track of what the right terminology is. We've changed it back and forth over the years, but a vice chair or associate chair, it's the same thing. They are there if something happens to a chair. So, and we'll talk about those folks in just a couple of minutes here. Other questions?
I have a question.
Yes.
Is there a QR code for making donations that we could put up on the board or is in the packet or anything?
I'm told they're going to be printed QR codes out there that folks can deal with. I know Heather, you might know more than that, or Claudia.
We'll have some QR code possibly. Probably.
And if not, one can always go to the Senate District website after the fact and make a contribution there as well. As long as we're talking about fundraising. Yes, cash is acceptable. If somebody wants a PCR for their cash donation, they are gonna need to put a piece of paper with that cash with name, address, et cetera. Otherwise, you can't, treasurer can't do a PCR. So that's acceptable. And if somebody wants to write a check to Senate District 43, that's acceptable as well. Yes.
As long as we're talking about fundraising, we're gonna have flyers available that night to hand out to people and tell them about our fundraising event on Saturday, March 9th. There'll be a fundraising event at Brookview Event Center from 7 till 9.
And that's for the Senate District.
Senate District 43.
Where is it? What?
Brookview Event Center.
Oh,
Where we had long going, similar format to what we did last year, where we're just gonna have live music, cash bar, hors d'oeuvres, and then hopefully, candidates and other people show up.
Okay,
Saturday, March 9th.
Okay, so watch for that information on caucus night, and I'm sure the Senate District will send out some email blasts about that as well. Okay, so we're gonna move on now to the next election of the night, which is number 9, the election of a precinct chair. There are lots of tasks, quote unquote, that are in the role of a precinct chair. Every Senate district struggles to activate their precinct chairs. So if you're looking at the section 10, after the election of precinct chair, vice chairs, role of the precinct chair, you hold that role for 2 years. Your tasks is directed by the Senate district. Your general task is to organize folks in the district. The candidates will call you up to ask for help. The precinct chair sits on the Senate District Central Committee, which is the governing body with Senate District between the conventions. So it's an important role. As caucus chair, you are not required to be the precinct chair, but you can run for that position. Many Senate districts, by the time you get through that 2-year cycle, about half their precinct chairs are gone. They've moved. They've said, I just don't have time for this. So it's not unusual that you might not actually have somebody serving as a precinct chair right now. If that person wants to serve again, they nominate themselves, just like anybody else can nominate themselves to be precinct chair. It's unusual, again, to have a contest for precinct chairs. It's not a role that people relish taking on. But if you do have a contest, you basically give each person a chance to speak. And then, because it's a contested election, then you need a paper ballot. And you would mark Gary, or you would mark Joe, those are your candidates, and then your tellers will count that up. When you have that election, you want to make sure to do the affirmative action reminder, which is, again, reminding folks how we want to have everybody have an opportunity to participate in the process. After the election of a precinct chair, and if you can't get one elected, you can't get one elected. That happens at caucuses. If nobody comes forward, and you move on. And in the reporting that night, you're going to say open, that nobody filled that slot.
Encourage people to talk it up though.
Oh, yes.
Tell people that, hey, you get to vote on who the DFL endorses and stuff throughout the year.
It's an important role, but it's one that people are often reluctant to take on, particularly after they read the expectations. They get scared away, but it's important to have somebody in that position. And then you want to elect, if possible, 2 vice chairs. And one needs to be identifying as a different gender than the chair. That's part of our affirmative action approach. And you'll see there the affirmative action reminder that you want to read at these elections. As you vote today, remember the DFL is committed to electing members of underrepresented communities, positions both within the DFL party and in public office. So make sure anytime you have an election that you read that affirmative action reminder. Since you've read the full statement at the beginning, you can just do this reminder for any other election. So you always want to make sure you remember to do that as well. Yes, Melissa.
About the gender thing, if you can, because it's hard to get people, if you can only get 2 or 3 women and there are no men who want to do it, does that mean they can't?
That's just fine. You know, if you can't get a gender balance here, that's just fine. Again, on the reporting forms that we'll talk about towards the end, you just want to note no males came forward or gender balance not possible based on who came forward, something like that. You're not going to get in any trouble for that, but just make sure to make those notes so that no one questions the heck did these people do? But it's not at all unusual to run into that. Again, these are positions that folks are not often interested in filling, but as Heather noted, talk it up. These are important positions. And if the precinct chair were to move away or say, I don't want to do this anymore, then one of the 2 vice chairs will have an opportunity to move up to become the precinct chair. One thing that you want to make sure as you get into these elections is form number. And get my finger covered here. Form number 9, non-attendee form. You may remember these from the COVID years where we weren't live and everybody had to fill these forms out. And if you want to maybe move forward, I tell you're having a hard time hearing me, but I don't have a microphone, so.
Are these long?
Yeah.
Is this mic?
Yeah, but don't hesitate to move forward if you're having trouble hearing. The non-attendee form. If somebody can't come on caucus night, they are interested in being involved in the caucus process, they will fill out this form in advance. The Senate district will be receiving these up until caucus night, and if there's any for your precinct, they'll be with your precinct packet. So make sure you look for these to see if you've got any. And somebody might drop one off on caucus night. My spouse can't come, but here's their non-attendee form. So you want to make sure that you keep these in the mix, because you'll note on this form, if you haven't used it, there are all sorts of little check boxes where they can say, I want to be a Senate district delegate, I want to be precinct chair, I want to be precinct vice chair. So you want to make sure that you look at these so that if somebody's interested in one of those roles, that you don't lose track of that. If there are people that have filled out this form that want to be a precinct chair or precinct vice chair, you would place their name in nomination and say they couldn't be here tonight, but they have filled out their non-attendee form indicating that they want to be active in that role. So you want to make sure you don't lose track of those folks. It's a mess if at the end of the night you go, oh darn, I didn't know we had those forms. And then you have to go back and deal with, oh, they wanted to be a precinct chair. So make sure you look for these forms before you start getting into any election processes, and that'll save you all sorts of hassles along the way. Yes.
So if I'm present at the caucus, but but Amy is convening my caucus where I live in that ward, but I've been asked to convene somebody else caucus for some other ward or precinct. But if I check in with her and physical presence there, but I'm not there at the time of voting, when they vote for precincts, can she represent and say that John's Town Hall?
Yes,
That's what.
yes, but I wouldn't rely on that. Frankly, I'd probably fill out an unattendee form instead, because that's the paper trail. I don't know how many people might be convening in a caucus that isn't their precinct. From the lists I have, I can't really tell that. So hopefully there's not a lot of that, because it's harder for you to participate in your own precinct at that point. But, see how it goes. But I'd recommend the non-attendee form if you're going to be in a precinct other than your own. Because that way, as I say, there's a paper trail that says, I'm there, this is what I want to be involved in. More questions, Karen?
Yeah, so only because I'm married to Craig, I know where and when caucuses are being held. I'm just curious how SD43 is informing or notifying folks in the.
I will leave that to the district officers that are here today to share with us.
And well, I think emails have gone out.
They have?
One save the date email and that's it. We need more than that, but what kind of strapped of dates that's in?
I don't remember seeing it, but maybe Craig does. Anyway,
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah,
That's
it
an
wouldn't
email
hurt,
that one.
frankly, if the district could do another one somehow, but that's not in our control right now, apparently. So, Ruth, yes.
What is the caucus cover sheet? I'm not sure which sheet is that. cover sheet.
Oh.
That would be form number 2. It's the precinct caucus report form. They keep changing the names of forms over the years too, but form number 2 is the one where you're gonna know who the convener was, who the chair is, precinct chair, vice chairs, et cetera, and then you're gonna know delegate counts when you get the next part of the evening, but that's one of the forms that turns into the Senate district, so that's form number 2. So we do try to have the form numbers there to help you keep track of what's going on. Okay, so we've had the fun of precinct chair and vice chairs. And we've got to look at the clock. Is it 7:30 yet? If it's not 7:30 yet, we can't start with item number 11, electing the Senate District Convention delegates and alternates. What do I do then? Well, you might have one of those candidates coming in to talk for a couple of minutes, or you can do resolutions at any given time. You might be able to squeeze a quick resolution in if it's like 7:20 and have the person make motion and maybe a couple of speakers for and against, then you could vote on that. And then lo and behold, it's 7:30. And that's when you're allowed to start the election of your delegates and alternates. The only time you couldn't start at 7:30 is if you still have people registering. Got to wait till people are done registering so that they can be sure to participate in the process. But it's unlikely that, you know, you won't have people already registered when you get to that point. Sir, if you want to sign in for today and pick up a packet?
Oh, nope, I'm just.
Thanks, Howard. All right.
All the registering takes place in the caucus, in the precinct meetings,
Yes.
not in the lobby.
No, they're not doing registration in the lobby. We're not doing online registration. We're using the paper form and we're doing that in each caucus room. We find it more efficient and the online system doesn't always work well. And you're going to have that bottleneck as you're trying to get caucuses going. So we're doing the little paper form, that form number 1. And we find that's a very efficient way to get folks registered in. Okay, so 7:30, no other registrations going on. We're gonna elect Senate district delegates and alternates. Those are the folks that are going to go to the March 16th convention. And they're going to endorse candidates for the state house. They're going to hear more speeches than they've ever thought possible. They're going to work on resolutions. And see what other kind of fun might come up that day. But that's the purpose of that next level convention, to endorse candidates for the state legislature. That's what we do at the Senate District Convention. The congressional district conventions and all of Senate District 43, except for Lucky Plymouth, is in 5th district. Plymouth is in the 3rd district.
Yes.
Both of those congressional districts have races for the seats to be endorsed for Congress. So if there's anything truly driving caucus attendance this year, it might be those congressional races. But even with that, caucus turnout the last several cycles has been low. So what are we going to have for people this year? We'll know Tuesday night, February 27th.
Another question.
Yes,
How many delegates do we elect?
you'll have
Is it somewhere
in your
else?
packet, it
It'll
will
say in the
tell
packet.
you. I've got a list. But because we're a strong Senate district for DFL voting, we have numbers that are very high. The district as a whole gets to elect 688 delegates and 688 alternates. To use my precinct, Gold Valley 3 as an example, we get 38 delegates and 38 alternates. And Ruth, just as an example, I've forgotten your precinct, Golden Valley which?
Seven.
Golden Valley 7, you get 34 delegates and 34 alternates.
Yeah.
The Senate district 2 years ago, no delegation was full. So will it be different this year? Time will tell, but they're high numbers because of our good DFL vote. Karen.
You said something really important, which you mentioned the congressional district conventions, and what's not in the notes, you should remind people, is that they need to be elected to the Senate district convention to move on to the congressional district elections.
That is partially correct.
True.
They need to get elected here to come to that convention, and then they need to get elected a state delegate at that convention to go to the.
But that's what I
So you
mean.
can
Yeah.
pretend as a visitor though.
They could always attend as a visitor, yes, but
If
if you
you're
want,
really gung ho about
You're
it.
really- okay.
if you want to vote on the
But you
endorsement,
might as well.
if you want to vote on the endorsement, you need to get elected a state delegate at the Senate District Convention on the 16th. You don't get to go to the you don't get to go to the Congressional District Convention by getting elected there.
No,
Right, the people that get elected here, go here, the Senate District, and at Senate District, they will elect the appropriate number of state delegates. I don't know if it's in the call or not. Let's see, where's the split? 21 state delegates from Senate District 43 and 1 from the 3rd District, so 21 for the 5th District, 1 for the 3rd District, and those state delegates will get elected. State delegates go to the Congressional District Convention as well, and we don't sadly have the dates for those available to us yet for today's training, but you gotta go through multiple elections to get to that next level of activity. Okay, so,
Dates be available.
more questions?
By the time.
I'm sorry?
Will the dates be available?
The dates will be available. We just don't have them tonight. We don't want to confuse people tonight in this training with any more dates than we have to. But, you know, on caucus night, people that get elected to the Senate District Convention are gonna get a call. That's the fancy term for, here's your official invitation to that convention. But those other dates will be available for folks as well. And they'll talk about them obviously on the 16th. Okay, more questions before we go into delegate and alternates? Yeah.
Well, you're probably gonna touch on the ranking, that's what I was gonna ask. How do you rank the alternates?
We'll talk about ranking alternates. So. The majority of the people that come on caucus night come for one of two reasons. They got resolutions they want to get passed, or they want to get elected to the next level convention. And many of the people that are there want to do both of those. So this is the next important task that we do. We elect Senate District Convention delegates and alternates. And you'll have in your packets, and before you leave today, if you want to know your precinct's number of delegates and alternates to elect, I've got a list here that I can quickly share with you. But I'm not going to rattle them all off now for you. So this is, again, we're now on item number 11 on your list. The forms that you're going to want to focus on for reporting are forms 3 and 4. Form 3 is where we put down delegates, and form 4 is where we put alternates. You may not have any alternates. If you don't end up with any alternates, write none on that form. So only make sure that form is turned in. And there'll be more than one copy of forms that are needed for the numbers of people you might be electing. But quickly walk through what we need to do to elect our Senate District Convention delegates. And then it's a separate election for alternates. There are two pieces of fun here. Remember, before you get going with that, check those non-attendee forms, see if anybody wants to be a delegate. And then you add those to whatever nominations take place.
One important thing to know there is that, so let's say you have 34 delegates from elect, you elect 17, and then you have 6 people that want to be alternate. So those 6 people are going to automatically get upgraded to a delegate. But you know that, so.
Yeah, there, for some reason, there are always people, just to follow on Mark's point. They don't want to be a delegate, but they're happy to be an alternate. But if you don't fill your delegate slots, that alternate is automatically going to be upgraded to a delegate. So they might as well move up, but we'll talk about that a little more in a minute. But for sake of discussion, my precinct, I have 20 people who want to be delegates. I don't have a contest because I get to elect more than that. Basically, want to have everybody say their name so we can write those down. And then if you don't have a contest, it's a simple voice vote. All those in favor of those people say aye, opposed say nay, and you've got your delegates. And you'll want to make sure that everybody that gets elected a delegate gets to that form to report delegate information, put down their name, their gender, address, zip code, phone, etc., email, all of that. Can't go home till your paperwork's done. So the more you can make sure people are doing this along the way, and that's why it's really good to have a caucus secretary or a volunteer that will help do that so that you don't have to do that while you're running the meeting. But it's really important to do that. And before you get done for the night, you want to remind folks, hey, if you got elected to something tonight, stop over to see Jane. She's got the reporting forms and we want to make sure we've got all your information. The other reason that's really important this year is it's a really tight turn between our caucus and this convention date. So we don't have a lot of time to gather the information we need to have our list for credentials and all those kinds of things. So you want to make sure that you get everybody to do as much as they can that night in filling out their paperwork correctly. Melissa?
Heather and Jen Strader and we recruited most of the people in this room. And we tried to get 2 people in each precinct if we could, so that the other person could be the secretary, know what's going on.
Absolutely,
either
great idea,
it's
yes.
Illness or something, but, if you're the second person, that's kind of why we were trying to.
Perfect, thanks for that reminder. One of the reasons we don't give you your packets of training is if something happens and you can't be there that night, then we don't have a packet for your precinct. So we have found over the years, the best way to do it is pass them out 6 o'clock on caucus night as everybody gets there to set up. But you've basically got copies of all the forms and the instructions and what we're helping you with today. So like I say, make sure you take lots of notes, review this at your leisure, and you should be fine on the caucus night. Now, we've had the best example there. You didn't have a contest for delegates. Let's hope that for ease of your night, that's what happens. What happens if you have more people running for delegates than you have slots? Everybody's familiar with sub-caucusing because we do it at the Senate District Convention to elect state delegates. Do you have to do it at your precinct caucus? Yes, if. And the yes, if is, if you have a contest, you have to ask, hey, we have a contest. How many people want to do proportional voting? And there are instructions at the back of your packet about how to do that. Since it rarely happens at caucus night, we're not going to talk about that a lot. But to do simple math, if I have 20 people at my caucus and I have 15 delegate slots available. No, let me make my math simpler. I have 20 people at my caucus and 10 delegate slots. And I have more than 10 people that want to be delegates. Proportional voting will happen if the number of people that are needed to elect one delegate want to go that route. So I have 20 people and I have 10 slots. I only need 2 people to do proportional voting. But that's how it works. And if that's what people want to do. Now, something that often works, mainly because not every delegate that gets elected actually is able to come to the next level convention. Say you've got 2 more delegate people wanting to be delegates, then you have slots. I'd say, would any of the delegates perhaps like to be top alternate? And then that lets us move on a little more easily. And very often people will do that. So we'll go back to the example of, I don't have a contest, we elected those delegates. If I had a contest, but folks said, yeah, that's not a bad idea. You know, I can be an alternate, I can be an alternate. Something I've always suggested is those people that are kind enough to volunteer to be an alternate like that, to avoid drawing the thing out with an election, have those people be your first, second, third, however many of them there are, have them be your top ranked alternates. And just a simple motion from the group will allow you to do that. Because alternates need to be ranked. Because if a delegate's not there, and you can look for alternates, it's the first alternate sits first, the second sits, and so on and so on. So it's important to rank. So they do have to be separate elections if you need to go that route, delegates and alternates. And then, okay, alternates. I got 5 people that want to be alternates.
Gosh, do we have to go through another election and fill out all these forms?
Someone could suggest, how about we just draw lots? That's a real simple way to break that up. If you want people unwilling to go there, it's a lot quicker. And you basically say you have 5 alternates, the people want to be alternates. They do little sheets, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and each person come forward, pick a number, that's their ranking. And then you didn't have to have an election to rank them. And then you just say, you know, all those in favor of those alternates say aye, opposed, same sign, and you're done with your alternates. Again, it's not something we normally run into in precinct caucuses. I've been going to precinct caucuses since 1972. We did proportional voting in a precinct caucus of mine one time in those 52 years. So I don't expect it to happen. Now, because there's that hot congressional race in both 5 and 3, the turnout may be higher, and people are going to want to get elected delegates to go to March 16th so that they can then vote on delegates for the next level convention. So maybe there's more people for delegates this year, maybe there's not. But again, our numbers are really high. The DFL average vote formula really gives us a lot of people in every precinct, and it's unusual, well, at least in the past 4 or 5 cycles, that we fill these slots. So, you know, we'll just see how it goes. We won't know till that night. You know, if you're overwhelmed in your room, that may tell you something, but they may be there for resolutions and not necessarily be delegates. You know, you never know till you get going. Yes.
Do delegates have to be available to go to the convention?
Good question. Do they have to, you know, if they get elected a delegate, do they have to go to that convention? Well, they don't. But if they got elected and can't go, then they don't get to participate. And somebody else that maybe wanted to go, that didn't get elected to anything, misses out on the opportunity.
Can you be a non-attendee at the convention? Like if somebody says they want to be a delegate, but they can't go to the convention, do you discourage that?
Is there a non-attendee form?
There isn't a non-attendee form. Oh, let me take that back. The precinct caucus is the only time there's a non-attendee form. People can get elected as state delegate if they're not at their convention, Senate district convention. I've seen that many times. But it's, you know, if you know you can't be at the March 16th convention, there's not a lot of purpose to being a delegate, because that's basically the one Senate district convention you're going to get to go to in this 2-year cycle. Depending on your city, you might have a city activity that you get to participate in down the road in the same 2-year cycle. But you know, if somebody knows they can't be there on the 16th, you know, that's their call as to whether they want to be a delegate or not. But it means that you know you're going to at least have to have one other, or your delegation can be short. And if your delegation doesn't fill, that's how it plays out on the Senate district level. You can't import people that day. They have to be elected on caucus night.
So if somebody would want to move on but can't attend that meeting, they'll want to let the people who are delegates know that, hey, can you vote for me, or can you elect me?
Yeah.
I don't be there, but can you elect me to go forward
Yes.
there?
Yeah, and it's hard to get elected at the next level if you're not there, but you know, if it's somebody that's well known, you know, you never know how that plays out.
Dumb question, but you talked
No dumb
about,
questions.
you talked about proportional voting, like in the unusual instance that you have 21 contestants for 20 slots for delegate. If you don't do proportional voting, is it, you just do it by, then you have to write out 20 names on a piece of paper,
That's a
right?
very good point. Yeah, you don't get enough people to say, I want to do proportional voting when you have a contest, then you're back to a plain old paper ballot. And you would be writing in that case, maximum of 20 names. And then your tellers will have all sorts of fun counting all those ballots. So, you know, as the caucus chair, you can only guide so far. You know, you got the will of the body is what you want to be following on caucus night. But, you know, if you know that there are ways to perhaps make the process more efficient, if you have a friend that's done this before or a spouse that's there, wink, wink, they can make some suggestions from the floor that folks might find helpful. So, but you know, you don't want people then to say, boy, Gary just railroaded everything through the way he wanted. That's not the role you want to be playing, because again, remember we talked at the beginning, you want it to be fun. You want people to want to stay involved in the process. The Senate District Convention is a whole nother set of fun that may or may not encourage people to stick around, but we won't worry about that. We'll let others deal with that fun on the 16th. But again, you want to make this as friendly as possible. You don't want people going, that damn DFL, I knew it was going to be a mess. You want to try to avoid folks feeling that way when they leave.
And they could also be allowed to speak for a minute or two
Mhm.
about why you should vote for them.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep, if you get a contest, people always want to go, well, who are all these people? And again, because we're not doing presidential stuff, you know, it's not important to say who you support for president. Because it has no bearing on what we're doing, because the delegate allocations for the national convention will come from the vote totals on March the 5th.
On the form, on Form 3, where we ask for phone and email, I've seen slips before when people register where they did not put one upload on them because they're afraid of getting calls or whatever. Or if people ask how the data is going to be shared, how their data might be shared, what's.
It's only used by the DFL party, and it's candidates who have access to the DFL voter file, which are endorsed candidates. But, you know, we want to be able to notify them of the convention and other activities via email. And if they're putting that email in, it's basically you're giving us the right to email you things. If you donate through Act Blue, you're going to get more emails from people than all over the country that use Act Blue to want your money than by anything you give to us at the Senate district level, to be honest. So I'm sure everybody sees those emails every day if you've used Act Blue, because Act Blue in this behind the scenes says, we're going to share that information with other people who want it. DFL party doesn't do it that way. And the other interesting thing to note, if you vote in the presidential primary, the DFL gets a list of the people that voted DFL, because when you go on primary election day, folks may remember this from 4 years ago, you have to say, I want a DFL ballot or I want a Republican ballot. It's the only time you're ever required to do that in Minnesota, because we don't have party registration. But for that day, the person that passes out your ballot is going to have a stack for each party. And you've got to take one or the others. I don't think there's a third ballot this year, but I've lost track of that for one of the minor parties. But that's the real fun on election day at the presidential primary if you're an election judge. If you haven't done that fun before, if you didn't do it in 2020, it's a little different. And I'm sure you've already had training about the March 5th primary, I would hope, that explains some of that, because it's different. Yes, great.
There is a third ballot. So Republican, Democrat, and
So one of the marijuana parties. Okay.
Did we get the third ballot? Mark?
No, well, they asked if you want more.
Yeah, but anyway, that's, again, unique to the presidential primary, but, you know, folks may have some questions about that and say, yeah, there is one. We've gotten delegates and alternates possibly elected. We're going to make sure folks are reporting in properly on our forms 2 and 3 and so on for the election activities. The folks in Golden Valley, for a minute, you don't have to listen to this. There are Hennepin County delegates to elect in New Hope, Crystal, and Robbinsdale. And I believe we've been told that for all except one precinct, everybody gets one county delegate. And there's a county convention on March 21st, 4 p.m. at Brookdale Library, and they will endorse a commissioner candidate. There's yet another form number 6 for the Hennepin County delegates. But again, if you're in Golden Valley, you don't have to deal with that. But if you're in those other parts of the district, you do. And if you only have one to elect, you should, if possible, have the alternate be different gender than the delegate. Again, if it's not possible, note that on the form. And if you do elections just like we've been doing all along, you want to read the affirmative action reminder and then go through your elections accordingly. Since all but one of the precincts just have one, you don't have to worry about ranking alternates. Top vote getter when you're voting for having nominations for delegate, Top vote getter is gonna be the delegate, then you have an election for alternate, top vote getter if you have a contest, it's the alternate, and you're on your way. And that gets reported on the Hennepin County Precinct Caucus Report Form number 6. And again, not Golden Valley, but all the other parts of the Senate District. And again, check that non-attendee form, because there's a little box there that they can mark if they want to be a county delegate. So watch for that. And then you've got that election to taken care of. Again, don't forget the affirmative action reminder, because you have an election. This is a task that often gets overlooked. It's really important to making sure that our Senate District Convention works well. Form number 7, pre-convention committee meetings. How many people in the room have ever been on a pre-convention committee? Gosh, we've just got such wonderful people. Thank you. You'll see on Form 7, the committees that we've got. Credentials, which is the one who signed folks in at the Senate District Convention, work with any challenges from precinct caucus night. Nominations, which will screen folks for party offices. Arrangements, which helps sets up the convention. Rules, which does the rules for the convention. Constitution and bylaws, which Senate District Constitution can only be active on, and the Senate District Convention bylaws can be worked on at any time by the Central Committee. And I left the most important one until last, rules. Rules has the hardest job because it's the shortest time frame. And the job of rules is to put together all of the various resolutions that have come forward on caucus night into a legible packet that we can then vote on at the convention. So if you want to be involved in a pre-convention committee, self-sign up is actually the easiest way to do that. And we have a form for pre-convention activities. We have forms for everything. Form number 11, pre-convention committee sign up. And the person can basically identify which committee they want to be on and fill out the form, and then they'll be set to be on that committee. All of the committees, as we see on Form 7, are meeting February 29th at Frankie's Pizza for their first meeting. And those start as an organizing meeting. Somebody will be calling it to order. Kind of, they'll be like a convener for each committee, just like the convener of the caucus. And then their first task would be to elect a chair and then get on with the business, figure out how many more meetings they might need, and so on and so on. But that's the importance of those committees. You have good, strong committees doing their work. You have a successful Senate District Convention. If committees don't work, then your convention is going to be in trouble. Yeah.
So, if you don't know you want to be on a committee and you don't know which one you want to be on, come to the meeting and you can see how many people are in different committees and which one you might want to be in. But all I'm saying is you don't have to commit to a committee on them.
Yeah, it's helpful if you do, because that's how we know how strong our committees are. But yeah, sometimes people go, I want to be on a committee, but I'm not sure which one, or I may need to know what kind of their meeting schedule is. That's okay. It's a little more cumbersome, but if you've been on a committee before and know what they do and want to do that again, sign up on that sheet, and then that'll help us a lot. Yes.
And I would just say that this is a great way to encourage people to volunteer for if they want to get active or learn more, then this is a great, and along with precinct chair, this is another great way to just do something that is already organized. It'll be people there that know how to do things, and you can kind of just learn and meet people who are in the Senate District.
Absolutely. That, just to repeat that point, it's a great way to get involved and learn more about the process. And you become that much more valuable to your Senate district or wherever you might end up if you move, as somebody that's done this before. There are never enough people that are good volunteers to help with these things. Ruth, yes.
So do we pass this form around the committee?
You can absolutely pass that form around during the evening. Yes, we need to talk about it. And while we haven't mentioned this before, at the end of the night, there are going to be a couple Senate district people that are going to be your check-in people to take your packets. And they're going to want to make sure everything is filled out. So you can make their job easier and your job easier if You make sure everything's getting filled out right along the way, and then it's boom, 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 boom. It's a real easy process to get checked out and go home for the night. Okay, so we've done lots of business, and resolutions is the next piece we want to talk about, item number 14. Resolutions, form number 8. And just like all our other forms, you want to make sure this one is filled out properly. There's a spot for the congressional district, your organizing unit, which is the Senate district, your precinct, your name, and an email or phone contact, just in case they can't make heads or tails out of what you attached here, they can reach out to you to help understand that. Because we have an ongoing platform, you see all those checkboxes there that are categories in the platform, and you have to figure out where your resolution might best fit. Let's say, for example, you want to pass a resolution that says the state should do another set of rebates. That would be tax and budget policy, so you want to check that little box. Every resolution gets voted on, yay or nay, pass or fail. You'll see at the bottom of the form, there's an adopted or defeated box. You don't have to track the vote total, but you need to note adopted or defeated, and you do want to turn in all of these regardless of whether they passed or not. Something that's really important, resolution titles. Please see that those 4 words there in the bracket, limited to 5 words. That's just a quick title description of your resolution. Please don't do more than 5 words because the resolutions committee might say they didn't follow the instructions. So do a quick, easy title, 5 words or less. And then the be it resolved is whatever it is you want to pass. Many organizations will be submitting resolutions to their supporters in advance, and people will print those out and bring them on caucus night. They can attach that to the form, but make sure all that other stuff gets filled out. The name of the people, etc., who's ever come up with it, what category it fits in, a resolution title, and then you can flip or staple that pre-printed resolution. You don't have to write it out yet.
Can these also be submitted by people that aren't there?
Yes.
Yes, they can be submitted by people that aren't there.
And then who reads it?
Then that's the job of the caucus chair to read it in lieu of that person being there. And sometimes people have to leave early. And again, you want to make sure that you don't miss out on any of those. So, resolution fund. Yes, Ruth.
Couple things. So I just want to say that the media, internet and information, I think is the new one that has been added to categories. So there's one more thing in categories that had been in previous times. People should just pay attention. And also for people who are handing in resolutions, it would be very, very helpful and important if they type it in advance, it'd be at least 11 point font, so that it's, can be read, and anything in the explanation box is where the whereas statements, if you're doing that, would go.
Yeah, anything you can do to make the resolutions committee's job easier is greatly appreciated. That is one I have never served on, and they have the hardest job of all, and we can't thank them enough. Yes.
And then they must fill in all that they're identifying information, or even if it's voted on, it's not on the ballot. It doesn't go anywhere. It has to be all filled.
I have been told that we need to emphasize that if the form's not filled out completely, the resolutions committee will reject it.
And up until the last time, for like the previous, 4 or 5 times, I was the person that types all the stuff up. And it has to be legible.
Yep.
Because we have to know what people voted on, and if they make it too many types to get it all in there, sorry.
Yep. And you literally got 2 weeks between caucus night and the convention by the time you get that first committee meeting to get working. So it's a very short fuse for that committee to work on. Yes.
If more than one person wrote the same basic resolution or the same exact resolution, you combine those and only read one.
You would just read one, and hopefully the person that somebody else wanting to submit it, and that can happen with groups that send them off to everybody. Once it's adopted, you're done. You don't have to do any more of the same thing. There's no point in that.
Yeah, I'll just for your question, if more people than one person the same exact thing, then it's, it's entered separately, but then when the committee does it, as far as the ones who are asking to be passed forward, then that's one resolution content. As far as the title, if you give a title that makes it clear what category you're thinking that you think your resolution should be in, that's really helpful. Amy, do you have any other?
Well, people need to be aware, and I think it's good to make it, would make them very aware of the precinct caucuses, that if we have similar ones, they're apt to be combined, and that we do, and we've had people come up very confrontationally at the caucus saying, my resolution isn't in there, you changed the word. You have to make it clear that this is a committee enterprise, that they're going to be fine, they're going to be edited, including for length. And the thoughts and counts, basically. Also, it does make sense to support, to go ahead and submit your multiple resolutions that are similar. Go ahead and do it because we count them and track how many people submitted it. You may be edited, but we're going to say, oh, there's a resolution for whatever. And it's going to say parentheses how many resolutions that are commonly got. So, it's yeah, everybody should participate in all that, but if you could let them know that it's subject to editing and being combined, that would be a very nice gift for whoever's in charge of the convention.
And there's only a certain number of resolutions that the convention can pass forward to the Senate.
Right.
So one of the jobs of the resolution committee is, if these resolutions are very similar, to combine it into one, so that the content, the desired content is, all together, and then pass on to the next convention. So clarity.
Yeah.
So what happens if you have resolutions that are similar, and so you're at your meeting and you have people that are kind of presenting their resolutions, some are similar, but maybe there are some nuances, like somebody has like a little add-on, then you wouldn't combine those two then if there are
At caucus night, I would not combine those. I would let everybody bring them forward, and then our poor friends on the resolutions committee are gonna have to combine those. But if people are there with a resolution, unless it's identical to something you just passed, and by identical, that's word for word, the more the merrier. And it brings up a good point. I got 5 resolutions. I'll put first one forward. Before I get to do my second one, you should make sure somebody else that hasn't had a nomination or a resolution chance to come forward yet, do them. And then, the next and the next and the next. And then if somebody's got more than their one, then once you've gone through everybody that gets the first shot, then you can do second shots and third shots. But it's like, if I have 5, don't let me do all 5 in a row, because that's not fair to all the other people who have resolutions. Just common courtesy to do that.
Oh, I thought that when I did this before, that they had collected them and then they had organized them. Somebody beforehand had collected the people who were going to do their resolutions, and then the people who then they were called forward to talk about the resolution. And so there was already some organization that happened.
To be honest, I've never done that at a caucus.
Okay, all right.
Because people have them in at the caucus, you
Yeah,
don't have
I
them
think
in
that's good.
advance.
Yeah, like, the people have them up front beforehand. And so then the person is like, oh, this is yours here, would you like to talk about it? That sort of thing. And so that way, if you had like 5 reproductive rights resolutions, you wouldn't have like, okay, like who else has this exact, you know what I mean? It would be a little bit, could be potentially.
I have always found it just simpler to just roll with the punches, let everybody come forward at the appropriate time with their resolutions. And vote them up or down, and again, make sure that's noted on the form, and then they're all gonna get turned in, and they're gonna get this big stack that goes to the resolutions committee, and then they go on their merry way from there. Important noting that, they may combine, et cetera. I believe the rule is still that we get to submit to the next level twice the number of resolutions that we have state delegates. But it's a small packet of what moves forward, given the couple hundred resolutions that may come out on caucus night. So
I forgot, is the resolutions adopted majority vote?
majority vote, yep, I put her down. And again, you don't have to note what the vote total was, just passed or failed. But again, make sure you note that on the form as well. Yes.
I'm proposing a resolution myself. Do I have to, if I'm the chair, do I have to give up that chair to somebody else in the room at the time I present my resolution?
For the purposes of caucus night, I would say, no, you don't have to give up the chair. You just say, you don't necessarily want to do yours first, you don't want to shut the audience down, but you have every opportunity to participate in that resolution activity, just like when it's time for delegates and alternates. Precinct chair isn't automatically a delegate to the next level. If you want to be a delegate to the next level, even though you're caucus chair or precinct chair, whatever, you got to nominate yourself.
Yeah, to the extent that the resolutions are state, I mean, if they're, well, if they're not, exactly the same, they should all be presented and be voted on. Especially when there are like some kind of significant variations, because it's not just your caucus. It's a caucus all over the Senate district. And we'll want to see that representation and what it is that's being summarized. So yes, encourage everybody to submit them and everybody to get voted on. And it's not an act of, you're not encouraging people to, oh, let's all get together on this one.
Yep.
Let's not do that
Yep.
at that level.
Yeah, you just let them go as long as people want to go.
Thank them for participating and vote on it.
Yep,
Yeah.
yep, you want to just go as long as people are willing. The school is going to kick us out around 10 o'clock, but I can't imagine people will still be going that long. That becomes a long night. One last item, we haven't talked about the election judge sign up form number 10. Pass that around for people that are not currently election judges that might want to be one for the.
We don't have that.
Well, there's a form number 10 that you'll have, that's just to sign in if people want to be election judges. I would encourage folks that want to be an election judge not to necessarily use this form and wait on the contacts that have to work all the way through the system. Just reach out to your city, look at their website, election info. There's usually a place to sign up to be an election judge there. And that's a quick and easy way to do that. That would be, again, for the August and November the August primary and the November general election. If they're still looking for election judges, they usually are. But check your city website, because by the time this form makes it through all the steps to get to the state DFL sending this off, this is a quick and easy reach out to your city if you want to do that.
And I would just add on that note, sometimes some cities have better turnouts for election judges. And so you can be election judge in another city. So I sometimes will go up and help out in Brooklyn Park, where there are less people that are volunteering. And so you don't have to just stay in your own community and help out. You can help out other communities where they're in dire need of more support too.
Yeah, on a lot of the forms to sign in at your city level said you're willing to work elsewhere. So
That's say to remind people that it is a paid position. People talk about volunteer, but it's actually.
it is a paid position, and most of the cities now are offering half-day shifts, unless you're a head judge. Head judge still has to work the whole day, but many of the cities, Golden Valley was kind of a late comer to finally doing half days, for example, but that's, it's a long day. I mean, it's 15 hours plus if you're doing the whole day. So a lot of the cities are offering half days. You do the morning hours or the evening hours, and that's a little easier for you. And again, as Heather notes, you get paid. Some of the cities have a couple extra hoops you have to go through with some background checks and the like, basic background, but it's, again, it's a wonderful thing to do. And anybody that doesn't think the process is tight as a drum in Minnesota needs to be an election judge for a day, and they'll see just how wonderful the system in Minnesota is. Yes.
There's a checkbox on Form 1 where you register that says to be an election judge. So is there a separate form?
There's also a separate form, form number 10, which apparently isn't in your packets.
Okay.
But again, I would recommend at this stage that if people really want to be an election judge, just contact their city accordingly, and it's a much quicker, simpler process to sign in that way. Okay, we're gonna entertain more questions here for a little bit, but before we get to that, we've gotten basically to the end of the tasks. We've had all of our elections. We've had visitors come in and speak. We've done resolutions. If it's 8 o'clock, you can adjourn at 8. You can't adjourn before 8. State law says we gotta stay open for an hour. I've never been at a caucus that was ready to stop at 8 o'clock, but you never know. Some of the smaller precincts possibly, but the most important things you can do on caucus night, make everybody feel welcome, answer questions. One of the reasons I like to do this kind of training in person, and for those of you watching online, I'm sorry that you won't have an opportunity to ask us questions, but you get to ask us questions, and I can see the puzzled looks on people's faces, if that's the case. And you'll see the same thing on caucus night. Somebody may go, I don't know, you know, take the time to try to help them out. Because if one person's not sure, it's possible there's others that are having the same issue, but they're too shy to ask. So encourage folks, if you've got questions, you know, raise your hand, stop us, we'll try to help. And the other thing, as the chair of the caucus, you might screw up. You're gonna be talking up there for an hour, you know, or more. There's nothing you can't undo. What you have to be willing to do as the chair is say, you know, oops, I just screwed that up. We gotta go back a step. Here's what I did wrong. Here's how we're supposed to do it. Don't be shy. Everybody in the room is your friend. We're all good DFLers, and you're the one that was willing to step up to do this. So, you know, it's okay if you didn't quite catch a nuance, because we make this a lot harder sometimes than it needs to be. And I think it scares some people away from doing these jobs. So again, kudos to all of you for being willing to help out with this. We'll open for more questions for about 10 minutes, and we want to try to wrap at 1:45 so we can get the room back in order for the 2 o'clock. Yes, Ruth.
So this is a suggestion and not a question. So if you're the precinct chair and you volunteered to be it, or even if somebody else is, and especially in an election year, it's helpful to say to people who would like to be in a planning group if we want to do precinct activities. And, you know, that's the opportunity when you have people who really might say, yes, I'm interested in doing this.
Absolutely, that's a great idea. Some precincts will do that automatically. They'll gather together for a meeting post caucus, or even before the convention, although there's not a lot of time. Just say, hey, here's what's gonna go on at that next level. Just, you know, if you've got questions. But anything you can do to keep people in touch and keep involved, that's gold. That's worth the wait and gold.
Segueing into that, our March 9th quote fundraiser is also designed to be a gathering place for all these precinct chairs. Tell people that you've got elected precinct chair or vice chair, show up at the meeting on March 9th and meet everybody else. It just got, that's what we want to do. Have a meet and greet. And I did mention earlier with the fundraiser, there's no cost to it. It's a free will donation, and the PCR table will be set up for anybody that hasn't used the PCR. That would be encouraged that night, but it's simply show up, have fun, and meet your fellow elected.
Wonderful. Yep, that's a real worthy opportunity for folks that see who their friends are going to be for a couple of years. If they're going to be a precinct chair and serving on the district central committee. But again, it's a good way to gather more info about what's going on and going from there. So hopefully there'll be lots of more info from the Senate district about activities that you can get involved in. Great.
Just information over there on the table where you came in, there's a slip of paper that has your precinct on there, and what precinct. And the room number that you're gonna be at Plymouth Middle School. So, it just it's very helpful. And there may be some adjustment to that. So the other thing I would say, if you're in the 100 series like Golden Valley, park in the east parking lot. If you're in the 300 series, either parking lot.
And just walk into the school and you get directed to. So
Will we have flyers about the fundraiser at the?
I'm assuming we would, yes.
And then, I want to confirm number 4, reading the affirmative action statement. It said if you have any contested elections, read this statement before voting, but then I thought you said no.
Affirmative action reminder is sufficient after you've read the full affirmative action statement at the beginning.
Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to read the whole thing each time you can, but the affirmative action reminder is sufficient for any subsequent elections after you've read the whole thing at the beginning. Yes.
One more, so if you are a precinct chair, before you hand in your list of everybody who attended, take a picture, put it on your phone, because, you know, that way you have the list and the contacts of people who might want to work with you for your precinct activities.
Yeah, that brings up a good point. Well, you can have people from the folks. You can have people coming from the candidate groups, people who are running, and they're gonna want to take a picture of your sign-in sheet. Because they want to be able to contact all the delegates themselves to the convention. So that those people will vote for them, not the convention. In the past, we had this where we wouldn't allow them to do it, but they do it anyway, so don't worry about it.
Yeah, but the important point there is if somebody from a campaign, say the Freiburg campaign and Fraser campaign, wants to make a copy of a list, do not let them make a copy until you're done.
Oh, yeah.
Done meaning everything is filled out. Every single person that got elected is on that form, because we blew up a Senate district by people copying a form for a campaign before things were done. They hadn't added the non-attendee forms. And that Senate district took 5 years to recover from
So
that
you
mess.
mean end of the night before you hand your paperwork.
Yeah, but just, you know, they're eager because they got that same crunch of time to be able to figure out who they need to contact as delegates. Frankly, the Senate district can fight with their candidates about that, but the key is don't let people start making copies of forms before you're done filling out the forms fully. Yes.
So do people that sign in, do you need to let them know that at the end of the meeting, somebody may be taking a picture of?
I see no need to do that. These are the DFL has access to these lists as soon as the data entry is done.
Okay.
Yeah, but they're gonna get, if they've never been to a caucus before and never been a delegate before, they're gonna get calls from the candidates, right, as quickly as they can after the convention or after the caucus to remind them about the convention and ask for their support. That's just part of the process.
At the beginning of this meeting, when you said precinct chair position is a one-night thing and you're done.
No, caucus chair is.
Or the caucus chair. I kind of changed my chair because I have always taken the position as I'm the link between the district and my precinct. And I collect their names and telephone numbers and emails and addresses, and I say, I won't contact you, but I want to let you know about this March 9th fundraiser and this gathering at the park and, you know, stuff like that. And also helping coordinate the, you know, letting them know what happened at the central committee meeting and stuff.
Frankly, Ann, that's the job of the precinct chair. To be very honest, it's not the job of the person running the precinct caucus. And that's, you know, that's really the precinct chair's job. Just that basic communication of what's going to happen after caucus night. So I don't disagree, but the precinct chair, as soon as you adjourn on the 27th, they should be the one doing all that kind of activity. You can certainly volunteer to assist them.
Well, yeah.
Caucus chairs.
But I would say
That's right.
the precinct chair.
Yeah, precinct chairs have a lot of things to do, and some will do them better than others, but that basic communication, you know, between caucus night and Senate District Convention is really helpful, and, you know, there'll be plenty of information about all these other activities.
I'm thinking about doing like a gathering of just precinct chairs, you know.
Sounds like the Senate District's already doing that.
Okay.
That March 9th event.
Yeah.
Is how I'm hearing that.
I know it doesn't involve Golden Valley, but is the election of how many delegates in the other cities expected to be?
The district that's going to have the special election for Chris Latondras, which is not those, that's going to be contentious. I don't know about the others. but there is one very hotly contested race to fill a vacant seat, so stay tuned for that information. They'll know.
And I'd just like to close just with thanking everybody here who's going to be convener and everybody who's volunteering their time, which is important. And you know, not very much time these days to do all the things we want to do. But thank you so much for being here, and thank you, Gary.
Absolutely.
Can everybody show Gary some appreciation?
I think that to me, we did an okay job, so. But, you know, take a look at this stuff. I'm gonna, before I start racing the whiteboard, let me just, you know, stick my email down here. Of course, I can't write with my darn. If you look at this stuff and come up with a question, it's MACCOHEN@comcast.net. Feel free to shoot me an email and I'll do my best to answer a question between now and the caucus night.
One thing I just noticed is that there's not a master sign-in sheet in the form here. Will there be one?
It's those little form number ones.
That's, I was gonna
Yeah.
mention, it's just this little form number
Little
one.
form, and there'll be a bunch cut up for you in advance, yes.
Okay.
Yep. Yep. Well, again, thank you, everybody. If you're interested in your number of delegates, I've got that list up here. But, in the meantime, thanks so much for coming. Thanks so much for spending a little bit of your Sunday with us. And, everybody have a wonderful experience on the caucus.